Ibo, how ready are you?
Yeah, we could start with story one. What's that thing that you put the PVC inside? What do you put the PVC inside?
PVC.
Card reader.
Card reader.
Card reader.
All right.
I was a bit surprised. What does that mean?
The voice taking the first story.
Yeah. So I'm on poster.
Bum, 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 bum.
He's not going to
Ah,
YouTube. Let's
okay.
see what's going on on
Okay,
YouTube.
okay.
But do you have headphones?
Oh,
No, he's fine.
Smooth 98.1. Thank you for joining us at this time for Freshly Pressed 981. This is the segment where we break down all top stories of the day on the news. And we have our analyst in the studio to join us in this conversation. It promises to be really insightful. So please join the conversation. We want to get your opinions in. Send your messages to 0809 444 I am here with Kaede Baker.
And of course, Lakumi is here as well. And we're joined by our analyst, much like she mentioned. Devo Corey is with us this morning. Good morning, Devo.
good morning, Lagos. Morning, analyst and Lakule.
Lakumi.
No, you said
Oh,
Lakoni.
Lakumi. Go on, go on.
Yes, Lakumi. So there are two Las in the
They're
house.
pointing now.
We're in La La Land.
Yes.
Oh,
And then
wow.
Mr. Baker. A cool, how many days to New Year?
Yeah, that's what I was waiting for. Lakale,
Right.
good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, Lakuni. Ladies first.
Of course.
The Lala combination.
All right, remember that we're on all social media platforms. It is Smooth 981. We have posted our headlines on WhatsApp status, on Facebook, on our Instagram stories. So you can check anywhere and drop your comments anywhere. We're going to be responding to your comments. However, see if you can drop your comments on YouTube and WhatsApp. Also, do Facebook, please. We will be responding to your questions on there. So let's get into the stories. We're done with the process. Okay, we're getting to the Punch story, the first story on our list this morning. The Independent National Electoral Commission's plan to transmit election results electronically in 2023 is currently doubtful, as the federal government has reviewed that only 473 out of 774 local government areas in the country have internet access. By implication, 301 local government areas have no internet access, thus transmitting election results in those areas may not be possible in 2023, even if the Election Act is amended. Devor, what are the options available to us then?
If only that was a question that could be addressed now. But this article is actually a, a factual position on what is going to happen, at least as of now,
Okay.
regarding electoral reform or no electoral reform. Now, as we all know, the president withheld his assent to the electoral reform bill as amended that was passed by the National Assembly as of last week. Now, what that means is that you fall back to status quo. Now, unfortunately, status quo is not ideally bad. It's just that status quo was not the best that we could have worked out as a nation in terms of delivering elections. And in this article, what it states that it was the federal government did release that only 473 local governments had internet access, while out of the 774, and about 301 did not have. However, it was said that this was meant to be covered uh, by the National Broadband Plan, which was meant to terminate sometime in 2023. And if elections were going to hold in February 2023, it wouldn't
We
be
were not able to
possible
meet up.
to meet up. Well, that is the federal government's position. And somehow we kind of understood prior to this time that the federal government was a bit sketchy about how its views towards this position. If you remember, in the other tenure, the first tenure, they pushed back on the electoral reform based on the fact that, oh, he said that there are discrepancies that could not be addressed just before the elections. Hence, we had to maintain status quo. Now, experts, because the truth is, is it the federal government that should be telling us whether capacity for internet coverage is possible by 2023? The national coordinator for Alliance for Affordable Internet, that was the past president of the Association of Telecoms Companies, Olushola Teniola, did say that even though that this was the case, that those 300 local governments did not have 3G access, that could be completed because it was part of the national broadband plan, that there's nothing that stops it from being realized in the next 6 months. And
Okay.
basically what we're referring to is telecoms coverage is a function of base stations, okay, which is what the terrestrial coverage we use in Nigeria. We're not using fiber. We're not using satellite. It's expensive. We could use satellites,
Yeah.
and immediately you
It's
use
expensive.
satellite, you're covered, but it's expensive. But if it's in terms of the current infrastructure, they could build remote infrastructure to cover those places. So it's not an impossibility. Now, so what that means is that we will revert to status quo. And like I said, what is status quo? Status quo by INEC is a current form whereby electronic transmission is not allowed in the results. If you remember last time when the PDP contested the 2019 results and they said, oh, you electronically transmitted it through a server, all the information is there of the election results. The then government claimed that there was no server, that there was no form of electronic capacity, that results were collated at polling stations and taken to the collation center.
Yes.
However, INEC has come out that they do have some level of capacity. So in the last non-calendar elections like Anambra, Ekiti, Ondo, they started trying out some new technologies like the BVAS, which was the biometric transmission. And like I said, what we currently have is the use of the PVC and the
Card
card
readers.
reader, which also has some slight teething problems, but generally it has helped minimize what do you call it? It has helped minimize the corruption that comes with electioneering. What INEC is trying to simply achieve is a case whereby, as results are being collated at the polling stations, that result is transmitted directly, just like a text message, straight to the collation center, so that you have a mirroring of results and that there's no opportunity for anyone. So if there's corruption or rigging that takes place
They know where
at
it's
the
from.
collection, yes, they can tell where it's from.
So possible solutions, remote infrastructure, where even if it's 2G that's available, I believe that can work. There's also the satellite option. Let's
Yes,
see.
but
Hopefully we don't go back to just
yes, but
status
even
quo.
if
We've
they
worked
bring
hard on
even
this
if they
for too
bring
long.
this technology about, the problem is that that reform is required to be passed by the president. And if he doesn't pass it, the National Assembly, who should rightfully move against the veto, hasn't acted in that capacity. So we go back to status quo.
All right, thank you very
Sadly.
much for that. If you're out there and you want to add to conversation this morning, you want to comment on what are some of the things that we just mentioned, feel free to send your messages to 0809-444-0981. Here's a story from the Premium Times. It's a little bit worrying for me. It talks about insecurity. It says, buy guns, defend yourselves. And this is coming from a governor in Nigeria. So I'm going to give you a background story. The Katsina State Governor, Aminu Masari, has called on residents of the states to arm themselves and confront bandits because security officials alone cannot tackle insecurity in the state. Luckily, this one comes to you. I mean, this is the governor saying that, everyone should just, defend themselves. How bad is this?
It's as shameful as it is frustrating to hear that a legally constituted authority in the Federal Republic of Nigeria will openly say this. I mean, one of the first guarantees in any constitution anywhere in the world, in any democracy anywhere in the world, even in non-democracies, is the duty of government to guarantee the safety of its citizens. Now, the governor is openly inviting all of us in Katsina to own guns, self-help, and then after we have gotten rid of the bandits, what happens to the guns? Are we going to return them? Can't we spend this energy that we are asking people to own guns? Is even saying they will help, they will facilitate people who want to own guns. can we not put these energies into ensuring that the agencies of government that should guarantee our safety is properly and well equipped to do their job in terms of um, 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 personnel, in terms of equipment,
But there's been
in
a lot of
terms of
funding over the
intelligence,
years.
and so on. So it always comes out to the same thing that we say every time. Much of the problem that we speak about in Nigeria, it is us, the people. You have just spoken about so much funds. That's another problem again. Do we think that the solution to every problem is throwing more money at it?
So when I
It
say
obviously
funding,
hasn't worked.
when I say funding, I said funding in regard that they put in funds to arm personnels, bring in more equipment to tackle banditry and kidnapping.
Actually.
The
amongst
police
others.
itself says that they have less than 500,000 personnel to
So-
police the whole country of
Exactly.
200 million people.
Luckily.
So how can that work?
Luckily. So the question is, do you think that the governor is trying to increase manpower? Do you
The
think
governor doesn't have I can see the governor's frustration in saying this, but we shouldn't be making if we go that route, we'll be making excuses.
he also
Yeah?
says we'll support those who come with the initiative to procure arms?
That's exactly
It means
what I'm
that-
saying.
It means that he probably plans to have like a process in
That's
getting
exactly what I'm
arms.
saying.
Yeah.
So you support the process, people own guns. So let's assume by June next year, we're able to get rid of the bandits. So what happens to the people that own guns?
They will return it because the government is involved in
They
the
say that the guns
process.
are going to be registered, right?
Okay.
So whatever
Yeah,
gun that's
so-
registered,
so-
that means that it can be tracked.
It's
They
still
may
the same
also
thing.
have
See,
expiration.
don't forget,
Yes.
when a crime is committed, whatever you do after the crime has been committed, it's not preventing that crime. It has happened. So if I own a gun and we're in traffic and you offend me and I shoot you dead on the spot because I had owned gun to chase bandits previously, and they arrest me and they prosecute me and all that, would that bring you back? So don't let us create a problem for the future now because we want to solve a problem now.
We see this
Solving this
in-
problem is very clear. Let us empower our security agencies to do their job.
Now, speaking of empowering security agencies, there's also problems like this in the northwest states like Zamfara, Kaduna, and Sokoto. So let's say, for the sake of arguments, that they're given the opportunity to procure these arms. That's
They do that in all those
We
other
happen in
countries.
all the other states as well.
We are creating an avenue for chaos.
So you don't think it
with
can be
this.
managed
This
the way
is
it's been
not.
managed
It
abroad?
can never be managed. There's no how we'll be able to manage this.
Right.
The solution is let us empower the agencies guaranteed by the constitution to do this job, to do their job. We've been talking about policing in Nigeria, 500,000. A third of them are doing sentry duties all over the place.
Actually, 350.
Okay, 350,000, a third of that number. So we have less than 200 policing the rest of us. So, I mean, if it is the first thing to do, recruiting more policemen, let's start from there. If it is to buy, to probably equip them, let us do that. Don't let us go down to people arming themselves to defend themselves. Like I said, we shouldn't be making excuses because it will cause more chaos.
Thank
Okay,
you so
so
much,
recruit more policemen.
Lakman.
Thank you, Lakman.
Real quick, let's get to some of the messages here. This one says, "Good morning. INEC and transmission of electoral results should kindly stop playing games and doing wuru wuru because the appropriate needful where internet is lacking can be sorted. Almost 40% of the votes are already in jeopardy. So are the planning. So are they planning a hijack of results in advance? There are too many irrelevant local governments in the system." And this is from EMC from Balinde.
Josie says, no internet available doesn't mean no network at all. SMS can be sent from those locations. At least it doesn't use internet.
And this one's from Tayo. Tayo says, "Imagine voting for people promising welfare and security, giving advice like buying guns and with calm because nothing is going to happen. Katsina about to look like the Wild Wild West." And he further says, "With the current ammunition in circulation, how many are registered? Please, small time would say that they need two guns. They need two guns for extra protection."
All right, let's move on to the next story. The Office of the Auditor General of the Federation has queried the Federal Ministry of Agriculture for spending a total sum of 3.809 billion naira on the suspended rural grazing area scheme without the presidential approval or National Assembly approval. Now, appropriation. So, Devo, this particular story has a lot to say, even beyond the Ruga situation. But I also wonder when this particular payment was done, because I don't think it's documented in the story.
No, it was. Basically, it's about numbers, and there are two AGs in the country that are quite famous without putting the IN. But you have the what's his name, Attorney General
Okay.
Malamad, and then you have the Honorable Auditor General. We hardly hear from him, but the truth is he is the one that actually is meant to give an account of government's performance,
Yes.
expenditure. And in this case, and he's done it many times before, the Office of the Accountant General has raised multiple queries on ministries, departments, and agencies. And in this instance, he had queried the Ministry of Agriculture for their expenditure to the tune of about 60 billion, of which 3.8 billion was spent on the suspended rural grazing area scheme, otherwise known as RUGA, without presidential approval, okay, or National Assembly appropriation. Now, in a query with about 8 exceptions, um, he mentioned how the Ruga scheme, which was brought up around 2019 in May, between May and June, which was suspended,
In July.
had there were receipts to show that this amount of money was paid out, okay, to the tune of about 3.8 billion, despite the fact that it was called off. Now, not only did he mention that, he stated that there were about 48 billion naira outstanding contractual liabilities. And then they noticed that they used the 2019 budget money to pay some outstandings in 2018. So literally, this query had gone to the National Assembly House Committee on Public Accounts, that they need to look into the fact that they're requesting the presence of the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture to come through and explain some of these outstandings. Now, what you really would expect is that, because it's not today that we've heard the Office of the Accountant General dishing out exceptions as to how public expenditure has taken place. It just seems as if between the ministries, departments, and agencies and the National Assembly, which is actually a real check, because even if the Auditor General is not the enforcement arm, he does the exposure, okay?
Yeah.
He does the publication of the accounts. What is the consequence management in all of this? We talk about corruption, corruption, corruption every day. This is how it happens in the various ministries, departments, and agencies. There was a huge outcry as to what was going on with the Ruga, and eventually the Ruga
Was
came up
suspended.
it was
In
suspended,
July.
but it came back in a reform manner under the National Livestock Transformation Plan. Now, how come 4 billion was still expended? And in its expense, what he was saying was that the money should be paid back to the federal government through the ministry. But before you even just say the
Paid
money
back.
should be paid back, what about the accountability? When are we going to hear from the Ministry of Agriculture to defend what has actually happened? And if there were errors or if there were violations, how are people going to be disciplined, punished, to ensure that people just don't continue acting out of order and guideline with public accounts? It is a huge responsibility. Literally, we sleep and forget that those in the ministries, departments, and agencies, civil servants, both at federal and state levels, as well as local government, are custodians of the taxes and the earnings that we aggregate as Nigerians.
Thank you very much for that, Dibble. Let's jump into some of the messages that we see here. We see one from Jerry. Jerry says,
Bygones, defend yourself. This is the height of it. The APC government led by General Mohammed, they have been saying it stylishly. He says, now defend yourself. The president in all honesty, should throw in the towel. He says he's overwhelmed simply.
Here's a message from Vincent. Vincent says, okay, if I can check my bank accounts as well as transfer my money offline without internet, the election results can be transmitted without internet as well.
Thank you, Vincent.
You might have a
Thank you.
point there.
Yes. All right. There's another message by
You would
Gray
assist.
Newton. Gray Newton says, please, is the government able to track the current arms issued to the police force? These bandits owned guns, which may have been resulted from arming individuals for political reasons.
And David comes in to say owning guns is always going to be a hot debate. Owning guns is for self-protection because the bad guys have guns. What do you have? What do the good guys have? Bad guys have guns to protect themselves. Security operatives. Let's talk it ourselves. Chaos has arrived, and drastic times call for drastic solutions. I'm sorry, but your analyst hasn't come up with a better idea. All I hear is try harder. Meanwhile, people are dying.
Okay, so he says we should, is pro gun. You are pro gun. All right, wasting money in Nigeria is too easy and it is rewarding. 3.8 billion gone just like that. Don't worry, guys. We'll go to the foreigners and borrow to fund this debt. That's tire.
Okay, let's move on to the next story, and this one's also a very shocking story. It says from the Punch newspaper, 15,049 nurses moved to the UK in 5 years. Luckily, this story comes to you. What are your thoughts about this?
Okay. Excuse me. The background to this story is that, as we learned in economics, people would migrate for different reasons, including economic reasons. We cannot stop anybody from doing so as long as it is done legally and in the best interest of everybody. So people who migrate for reasons of this category of people, the nurses, might have migrated for economic reasons.
Okay.
All right. Now, the way the worry is for me is if in 5 years we have lost 15,000 nurses to one country, it then must mean then that we have a factory, in quotes, that's churning out these nurses more than we need. But guess
More
what?
than we need?
When I saw the story, hold on, I'm coming somewhere. When I saw this story this morning, so I went to the Nursing and Midwifery Council of Nigeria's website, and it says that they have 250,000 registered nurses in Nigeria. So I'm presupposing then that this 15,000 that has left over the last 5 years are part of these 250,000. I also checked with the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives. There's a report that said that by the year 2030, 8 years time, Nigeria will have a shortfall of 137,859 nurses. Today, we're supposed to have at least 800,000 nurses to take care of the medical needs of the estimated 200 million Nigerians. But we have approximately 200,000. Don't forget, again, the 15,000 that are left for the UK are part of that 200, because I know people, even when they live here, particularly in the medical field, they continue to maintain their Nigerian license. So they will continue to count them as part of what they have on their database. So now, the issue now for me is, if we keep losing people, I might not worry so much if we lose people who are not critical to the survival of an economy, to the well-being of the economy, the people, and so on and so forth. But when we start losing those people who can sustain our well-being, who can, and so on and so forth, that's when we begin to worry.
Now, we've seen this happen with doctors. Now we're seeing it with nurses. In one word, is there a solution? Is there an end in sight to this?
It's simple. The reason for the migration is economic. Can we make their stay here as competitive as where they are going? If not economic, other reasons they will give, of course, all the myriad of problems we complain about every day in Nigeria, but let's discount all that. Let's just look at it from the point of economy only. Can we make it, people get trained?
Let's get into the next story. The vote, Buhari to sign 2022 appropriation bill on Friday. President Muhammad Buhari is to sign the 2022 appropriation bill on Friday. His senior special assistant on media and publicity, Gabashew, confirmed this to newsmen in Abuja yesterday. According to him, the 2022 document has been transmitted to the principal and he will sign the bill into law by 10 a.m. What should we know about this bill?
Well, the truth is, budget signing doesn't mean much to many Nigerians because It's not that money falls out from heaven. It's simply saying this is permission to act on government's
This is the
plan.
plan. Yeah.
So we can title this article as Budget 2022 uploading, okay? And they've given a date and time when it will be signed. And like I've said, it seems the federal government, anytime it is somehow in their favor, the dates come out. When it's not in their favor, and let us,
They've been
let's
adjusting and tweaking and
let's go back and look at
fine-tuning the
it.
budget.
They start to dilly dally. But in this case, the media's publicity essay, senior SSA Garba has said that by 10 a.m., I think on Friday, this Friday, which is actually New Year's Day, the deed will be done. Now, remember, some of the benchmarks that they've given is that first of all, it's being pitched at 17.1 trillion, which was an adjustment on the benchmark price from $57 to about $62 per barrel. Remember, oil has been at a high for quite
they've
some
been
time
pegged at
now. So
62.
generally, what they're saying is we're earning more. So please don't muzzle the cow. Give some expansion. So that's what's been done there. Two, it's also nice that while you're looking at the future, this article doesn't really state budget performance, as in whether the 2021 budget performed. If I'm correct, budget performance for some years now has been at between 30 to highest, I think 40, 50%, simply because we've been borrowing. And these are the issues that Nigerians need to understand, that between the revenue and expenditure of this country, what is the real quality of our budget? And generally for a long while now, it's not just this administration, we've had a serious, very unhealthy budget whereby you have about 60 to 70% recurrent expenditure. That's on salaries,
The
etc.,
finance side.
operations, while the real infrastructure, the stuff that would change Nigeria, create employment and jobs, that's the capital expenditure, has remained at 30 and below percentage. And whilst not even that, the money you're even using to operate is not fully from your revenue. The bulk of it is borrowed, and you've not been able to pay back, which is where the debt management issue comes in. So whilst we can hail and say, okay, with growing income and oil prices, the GDP to revenue is okay. But the real issue, which is not spoken about, is the GDP to debt servicing, which, in simple terms, out of every 100 naira Nigeria makes, about 90 to 95,
90?
yes, 90 to 95 naira of that goes to debt servicing. So you can really see we're spending, as the proverbial, we're spending more than we have. So we are in 6 states. So we really, really need to discuss this in the new year.
Thank you so much for that, Duvo. We're totally out of time, but you know what? We've got messages here, and we can't take all those messages, but we will try to take them in the next segment, which is Lagos Talks 91. Although we do have a special, we've got some very special analysts joining us for the 2020 Economic Review, okay? And that we'd love for you to be a part of. You can find our analysts on social media, by the way. You can find at Lackney 70 on social media. Yes.
Yes.
And also at Divo Corey on social media as well, across all platforms.
Up next at 8:10 is Lagos Talks 91 special. Do join us then, because we cannot wait to hear all you have to say regarding Nigeria's economy this year.
Chop by chop. Chop by chop government.
Thank you. But also, you said 90%.
Yes, it's even 90 is
The
even
last
low.
conversation we had the last time,
almost at
person said we're paying
almost at
34
99.
naira.
Who said 34 now?
If for every 100 naira that's made, we pay back 35 or 36.
Who said that?
5%.
Who said that?
Our expected revenue,
Yes.
we're going to be spending 25% of
We have not
it
stopped
Yes.
it.
as servicing our previous debts.
Okay.
It's like we already owe 100 million.
Yes.
That's even on
Hold on,
interest
hold on.
interest payments. Not you've not even started paying the
servicing.
debt back.
We said servicing.
Eh.
Let's just use the word servicing. Don't let us define
No,
it.
no, I'm saying
We
they
already-
need to
hold
understand.
On,
So
hold
wait,
on,
let's
hold
let-
on.
if we need to
It's like
let's
this.
know how much it
it's
is
like
now.
this. We already owe as at end of, it's next year. So let's assume today is January 1st, 2022.
Okay.
As at yesterday, we were owing 100 million.
Okay.
So government says January 2022, December 2022, we're going to make 300 million. Yeah. So from that 300 million that we are going to make between January and December of this new year,
Yes.
we will spend 25% of it, which is how many?
Enjoy my story.
Which is about 75 million naira
Yes.
to service the debt we were owing as at yesterday. It's not inclusive of the debt of that we are going to owe in 2022. That's what it is. Our external revenue.
So then why
So
are
when we
going
make
up?
money,
Because
we'll
they've
take from the
added
money
1
we have
million
made
Huh?
They
to go
added
and
1
pay.
trillion more to the budget.
That's,
So
that's,
why are
what-
we
now
borrowing
that's-
more then?
that's
what
where
it
we're
is now,
screaming
because
now.
we are,
That you're
we are
living
a
beyond your
budget
means.
deficit. A budget deficit.
But if they don't- if they don't-
Let me give you an example. It's like you carry yourself and you say, I'm going to pay for that house in Banana Island. I don't want to know.
No.
Wait, I'm coming now.
So
coming.
But if we don't borrow, then how do we
And
finance?
that's the
like-
point now. So you don't have the money, so you go and borrow.
So if we don't borrow, then how do
It's
we
like
finance the
you-
infrastructure that we want to invest?
It's
Now
like-
they talk now.
Cowdy is like you have 45
So
million.
should we
naira
just not
cash.
borrow and just face what we have?
No,
and build
that's
on
why I
it?
mentioned the balance, the quality
So,
of
for
the
example,
budget.
see, this is it.
You should be borrowing for infrastructure, which is okay because
For
it will
example,
come
hey,
back.
that's where I
Not
was
for-
heading.
not for paying
For
salaries.
Not for
example,
paying salaries.
This is one of the things. It's like you have 45 million naira as you stand now, and then you decide that all of the 45 million naira you're going to use to buy Vogue,
You want
Range
Help me get my
Rover Vogue, and you go to buy the Vogue,
Yes.
and you are driving it around.
My script. No,
Who is going to pay for the fueling?
Are you
Well, I
hanging
think you
around?
have my script.
I'm not supposed to be part of it. I'm supposed to go now. They're supposed to. Who is going to pay for the service of that car when you need to
I
service
get what
it?
you mean. I get what you mean.
You are going to borrow money to service it.
Who give you this?
Who is going to pay for the insurance?
It's
And
crazy.
so on and so on. So,
I put your name on the list.
So-
No entry.
Interesting.
No,
Good morning.
that's why I don't fly. Come on, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Hey.